I think it's going to go through this time. Okay, we're live.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ben Chandler. I'm the chair of the Kentucky State Board of Elections. Excuse me. This is our December 21st, 2021 meeting. It is a regularly scheduled meeting. I'd like to call that meeting to order, and I'd first like to have the members introduce themselves. And I'll start from the top on my screen of Lynn Lane.
I'm Lynn Lane. Good morning. I'm the retired county clerk from Ballard County.
Deanna Brangers.
Good morning, everyone. Deanna Brangers, member, Jefferson County.
Sherry Whitehouse.
Good morning, Sherry Whitehouse, Bullitt County, member.
Corey Skolnick.
Morning, everyone. Corey Skolnick, member, Jefferson County.
James Lewis.
Good morning, James Lewis, retired county clerk, Leslie County.
And our Secretary of State.
Good morning, Secretary of State Michael Adams, non-voting member.
Very good. We have a number of members of the staff here with us. We have Karen Sellers, who is our newly minted executive director, and we're awfully happy to have you here, Karen, and in your position. We also have our finance director, Rachel Pointer. We have Sheila Walker, we have Tom Watson, and we have Taylor Brown, all of on the staff. And I want to introduce to everybody our new assistant director, and that is Richard House. Richard, we're very pleased to have you. I think everybody's excited to have you on board, and I know you're going to be incredibly valuable, and we're all looking forward to getting to know you better and hopefully in person at some point.
Thank you.
All right. First thing on the agenda are the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve them? Does anybody want to have any alterations to the minutes?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Motion by member Lane. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by member Brangers. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. Next, we're going to move. Well, first, I want to announce that we're going to have an executive session on security matters later in the day, later in this meeting, and that'll come toward the end. But to begin, excuse me, to begin with, I want to call on our president of the State Association of County Clerks, Jason Denny. Jason, I know you've got another meeting to attend, so if you'd like to go ahead and present to us, that'd be wonderful. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for moving me up on the agenda. I do have a physical court meeting today and getting our budget approved, so sorry about that. Thanks for moving me up. Just a couple of things that we want to touch on as KCCA. Thank you all. Thank the state board members. Thank all the staff members for a great year. And we want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So that comes from the KCCA and a heartfelt thank you. First thing on my items is the Diversified Funds. As you all received a letter from the KCCA, I did that on behalf of the association, and a vote of the majority of the legislative body to send that letter outlining that we, due to expediency for our fiscal courts, et cetera, we would ask that you go with the precinct model that has been established for many years and disperse the refunds for voting equipment expediently, or that we can get these equipments paid for, and some counties get them ordered. Some fiscal courts are holding on ordering due to not knowing how much money they're going to get from this money. So we ask that you do that. However, we do entertain a sit-down meeting in the future to look at future ways of dispersing monies down the road. So we would entertain ideas on that and would be open to that in the future. We do have concerns with the transportation and the motor voter issue with SBE and transportation. We are working with Karen and the transportation department. We're going to have a meeting sometime probably right after the first of the year. These regional sites are not putting county designations correctly. We're seeing issues with people being registered and it going to the wrong county. We are, and I'm going to say this over and over again throughout my term, we need a statewide GIS mapping system for voter registration, as well as many other things in the state. Other agencies need it as well. We need to push for a GIS system that can be used statewide by county clerks to know where people live, if possible. So we're seeing some incorrect data and some county designation issues, but I believe we will sit down with this meeting and we're going to work out those issues. The last thing on my agenda is e-poll books. There have been several counties concerned with e-poll books. Karen is full aware of this as the director, and there are some counties that are asking for permission to go with other e-poll book vendors. That's just a preliminary talk there, but we will be probably addressing the state board at the January meeting on that issue more so. They are the current e-poll books we have are with 10X, and I know they were bought and paid for by state and federal monies, and we understand that, but there are some counties that are wanting to use other programming or other technologies instead of 10X. So that's just a concern that we all have, and we'll be addressing that later. That's about all I have today. Thank you all for what you do. We know you have a thankless job sometimes, as well as we as elected officials. Chairman Chandler, you've been elected, you know that. So we do, and there's probably a couple others that have seen that. So you understand where we all are, and thank you for the working relationship that we have with State Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate all of those comments, and we value our relationship with the county clerks very much. You all do a tremendous job for the people of this state, and it is thankless in many respects. And what you all did last year to step in the breach in such an unusual year really was heroic. And the job was so well done that we had very little press on it at all. You know, you only get press when you screw up for the most part. And you guys just handled it like champs, and we really appreciate it. Great service to the people of this state.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, sir. We'll move on to the next item, which is approval or ratification of county boards of elections. We have a handful of those. Looks like a couple of them in Jessamine County, maybe, and Greenup County. Karen, do you want to address that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hart County is, we need to ratify their Democratic member moved from the county. Therefore, he resigned from the County Board of Elections. They have submitted the appropriate paperwork to replace that person. Typically, we do the first name on that list. In this case, Francis Nemo, I believe is the proper pronunciation. Do you want me just to move through all three of these and then
Have you all already done these, and do we ratify them, or do we need to approve them?
These three are ratifications.
Okay, very good. Yes, if you want to move on through the three ratifications, and we'll do them all at once, if that's all right.
No problem. Jessamine County, we had during the special election, one of their members had to temporarily step down due to personal reasons. And of course, during that time, you know, the county board was fairly active. He temporarily resigned from his position. The Republican Party appointed someone, which the board, I believe, approved previously or ratified previously, but now the gentleman is prepared to return to his duties. And so we need to ratify his return to duties on the County Board of Elections. The third one is Greenup County. They had their Democratic member resigned. He is running for office and has now resigned, and we need to appoint or ratify the person that is already here, which I believe is the first name on the list, is Coretta Fuller. And that is a ratification. So all three of those are ratifications.
All right, well, that all looks pretty straightforward to me. Does anybody have any questions on any of those three? If not, I will accept a motion to ratify.
So moved.
A motion by member Lewis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by member Brangers. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. We will move on now to discussion on the Harlan County situation on their county board of elections. Karen, you want to fill us in on that?
Yes, sir. The Republican Party of Harlan County has elected or removed due to inactivity the Republican member on the county board of elections and submitted 5 names as appropriately done and reviewed. Janet Stevens is the name at the top of the 5 names they've submitted. And we would need that to be approved. But the paperwork is appropriate that's been submitted, reviewed by our attorney.
Are there any questions on that? And if not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
motion by member Lewis. I believe that the second was that you, Lynn?
Yes, it was.
Second by member Lane. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. The next item on my agenda is Shelby County, and I understand that's been resolved. So we're going to move on past that. Unless there's anything you need to say, Karen. All
Okay.
right. We'll move on to financial reports. Rachel Pointer.
Good morning. I'll keep it short and sweet for most of you guys because there's been very minimal transactions this past month. And really the only thing that we have going on as far as projects is our federal financial reports for all of our grants are due on December the 29th. So we're in the final stages of getting those certified right now and turned in. And then we also have initiated the close of the CARES grant with the Election Assistance Commission. So they are working on getting our final federal financial report prepared for that as well. Are there any questions about the financials for this month?
Anybody have any questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Rachel. We will move on. Appreciate that. Next item is county plans for the upcoming 2022 primary election. Karen, you want to take us through that?
So today there are 9 plans for approval, and sending these out was somewhat problematic in advance. I think it's because some of the maps are large, and but hopefully everyone got copies of the 9. The 9 counties I can go through, but Ballard, Bullitt, Davis, Franklin, Henry, Lincoln, Logan, McCracken, and Menifee are the 9 counties. Just to briefly mention, and I will say that I was anxious for Richard to be part of the review because he started on Thursday. So I apologize for getting these out a little bit late, but I thought it was important that Richard be a part of the review with us. So we did that on Friday. And I want Taylor and Richard to chime in if I've forgotten anything as I move through these pretty quickly, because they may remember something I didn't remember. So for Ballard County, just briefly, they are going to be voting in 5 magisterial districts with their precincts consolidated in each of those areas. And their early voting on Thursday, Friday, Saturday will be at the courthouse. Bullitt County has 5 total countywide voting locations on election day. 3 of those locations are early voting. They added 2 voting locations on election day that accesses some of the less populated areas in Bullitt County. The 3 voting centers will make up the majority. The radius there makes up the majority of the Bullitt County population. Davis County, since Richard was a big part of preparing that for presentation, I thought I would defer and let him mention what they're doing in Davis County that they would submit.
Davis County will be having three early voting locations and then a total of 15 voting centers on election day.
Moving on to Franklin County, they have 2 early voting countywide locations. They're adding 6 additional locations for election day where they're consolidating their precincts. And so it's a total of 8 locations on election day in Franklin. Henry County is a total of 10 election day locations. They have 1 early vote center at their 4-H building in Henry County on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday early voting. And then they're doing 9 areas of voting on election day that are consolidated precinct locations. The vote center will also be open on election day. That is countywide. In Lincoln County, they have 7 countywide vote centers on election day where any precinct can vote at any location. They will have their early voting in the courthouse. Logan County has 5 total vote centers. Their early voting location will be at the Armory. And then they have added 4 countywide vote centers for election day. McCracken County has a total of 20 voting locations. Their early voting will be at the McCracken County Courthouse. And on election day, they have 19 voting locations that are a mix of consolidating precincts, and some locations are single precincts. I believe this was due to some of the population in the single precincts and some of the areas of the county that do not have large populations. They have consolidated their precincts at those locations. Menifee County, they have 4 total vote center locations on election day, and their early voting center is at Clark Energy, the Clark Energy building in Menifee County. And those are the 9 county plans presented today for your approval and or any questions you may have. Richard and Taylor and I all reviewed them. We're happy.
Thank you, Karen. Does anybody on the board have any questions or comments related to these plans? I suspect that you'll have some thoughts, Mr. Secretary.
I do. Thank you all. Good morning, Karen and Richard and Taylor. Thanks for looking these plans over. I sat down with my staff yesterday. We went through them as well. And I think the one takeaway I want everyone to know is that all of these plans represent either at least as many locations as we had in 2020, or in most cases, an increase in the number of locations. So Menifee kept all their precincts. Lincoln has 17 precincts. They're doing 14 vote centers. So in most cases, there are actually more locations than there were in 2020, which is good. And being objective about this, my guess is the turnout will be somewhat lower next year than it was in 2020 because it's not a presidential year. So I think we're really well positioned for this election with respect to these county plans.
Mr. Secretary, could you explain the difference real quick between a vote center and a precinct?
Yeah, so something that we did in 2020 on a temporary basis through emergency powers that the governor and I were granted was to allow for counties, actually specifically in 2020, to require that counties offer at least 1 vote center. A vote center is a location where anyone in the county can vote regardless of the precinct. That was necessary for obvious reasons in 2020 with the consolidation of locations we had to have due to a lot of locations not being available. That worked out really well. Full disclosure, that was a policy that I proposed before the pandemic, right after I was sworn in. We got a crash course in it last year. The voters really liked it. The clerks really liked it. So in our legislation this year, we made these optional. No county has to do them. Menifee County, for example, they're doing 6 vote centers, but it's the same precincts they already had. This does not require the counties to consolidate. It does not require them to make locations vote centers, but they have the option to do that if they choose. This is something that's possible now that wasn't possible previously due to the e-poll books. With the e-poll books, we can verify instantaneously if a voter has voted at some other location in the county. It used to be if someone voted at one place and went down the street to vote at another place, we wouldn't know about it until the election was over and we went through the books. We can do that in real time now, and that prevents double voting. So this is a great way to make sure people don't go to the wrong location and get turned away. I know of literally hundreds of occasions in my career where I've heard from voters that they were turned away at the precinct because they went to the wrong location. Well, guess what? They don't go to the next location. They just give up. So this enfranchises people, but it also makes it much easier for the clerks to run the elections.
So the difference between a vote center and a precinct is that at a vote center, anybody in the county can vote there, no matter what precinct they live in. At a precinct, if it's a precinct, you have to be at the right precinct.
That's right.
Okay. And let's take Lincoln County, for instance. Lincoln County, as I understand it, went from 17 precincts to 14 vote centers. And while that's fewer locations, I would take the position that that's actually more opportunity to vote because anybody in the county can vote at any one of those 14 locations. Is that correct?
That's right. I do want to clarify in some of these cases, I think Henry, for example, they are doing a vote center, but they are also consolidating precinct locations. They have 20 precincts. They're having 9 precinct locations plus a vote center. So there's kind of 3 different ways to do it. And some of these are a mix of different types, either vote centers or regular precincts, or as in Henry example, kind of a mix of the 2.
And that was the intent of the law, was to allow the counties to pick a scheme that would be best fitted for their situation.
That's right. Our role as a board, or I should say your role as a board, I don't get a vote, but the board's role is basically to review these and approve them if they're deemed appropriate. But these are designed at the local level with local input. It's the local officials who know their county better than we do who offer these plans for review.
Thank you. Does any other board members have any thoughts or questions about this?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Member Lewis.
Secretary Adams, do all counties have the capability now to operate in real time on the e-poll books?
To the best of my knowledge, if they're using e-poll books, they should have that capacity.
Okay. I know when I was clerk, we did not because we didn't have service in most of our precincts. And that's the reason I'm asking, because that presents a problem if all counties aren't able to operate in real time. Because as you said,
You do have to have internet service, I assume.
yeah, unless something's changed, yes. And then that's something I would hope that Karen would check on to make sure, or the secretary, that all counties are capable of operating real time before approval is given to allow people to vote in any precinct they want to through vote centers. The other question I had, and I'm sorry I didn't look this up. I noticed this in one of the plans, and I intended to go to the statutes and check this out. But did the law change on the time frame? I'm talking about the daily, hourly time frame of early voting. And the reason I say that, previously on the in-house absentee 12 days prior to the election voting, you only voted during the hours that the clerk's office was open on a regular basis. And I noticed one county, they were a couple of days, they voted until 6 p.m. And I wondered if that's their normal business hours, or if in fact the law has changed.
You have that answer, Mr. Secretary, off the top of your head?
I'll defer to Karen on that.
Karen?
Member Lewis, a couple of things.
Yeah.
One, yes, we provide what's called MiFis to each of the counties where they have an ability to connect to the internet that is furnished by State Board of Elections, regardless of their location. Tom is on the Zoom call. I'm sure he would be happy to explain a little bit more about that ability that all the counties will have countywide for their e-poll books. We used it in 2020 at the locations for their voting centers then. The second question regarding the hours, I'm going to defer to Taylor because this has been something that has been on our mind and in discussion. And if Taylor, if you don't mind, just maybe commenting about the normal business hours as it states in 574.
Sure. And if you don't mind as well, just answer Member Lewis's first question even more. We brought this up Thursday at the KCCA meeting, informing the clerks, just kind of a reminder that you do need to be connected to the internet and start thinking about how you're going to be connected to the internet now. If you need to get a hold of COT or what you need to do, start thinking about that now. So we are hammering that home. As to the normal business hours, that is something that I think normal business hours is a phrase that can be left up to interpretation. So what our advice right now has been to be your normal business hours. If you're normally open on a Saturday till noon, you should at least be open till noon on Saturday. If you're open on a weekday till 6, don't close at 4. Right now, the way it is written, that the advice we've been giving is to stay at least the hours you're open normally. That could be part of a cleanup bill. We'll see. I know some of the clerks have brought the same point to our attention that you brought up, Member Lewis, and they'd like to see some uniformity there as well, instead of just the phrase normal business hours.
I want to welcome back Jason Denny of the Clerks Association. Jason, I guess you got through your other meeting pretty quickly.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Unanimous votes on all 3 issues. Thank you.
Well, congratulations. Would you like to comment on this? I think Jason's frozen.
Comment on, I would, sir. Thanks. It's too.
All right.
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry about that. Let's be streaming. KCCA sees it a couple of different ways. It's the definition is very vague on normal business hours. I don't open on Saturdays. I open, Monday through Friday. I have an extended hour on Monday, but my rest of my time I close at 5. So does that mean on Saturday I open from 8:30 to 5 like I do Tuesday through Friday, or do I have to be open till 6 like I do on Monday? So then the consistency comes into like a state representative's race. One county closes at 4, the others stay open till 6. Does that give one group of voters an advantage over others? Even though I would like to have the ability, and my board would like to have the ability to set our own hours, because we feel like we want to stay open till 6 to allow those people working Thursday and Friday to come in and vote. There's others that want to close at 4. it may take statutory language to specifically say what times. However, if we go to a 12 hours Thursday, 12 hours Friday, and 12 hours Saturday, like some have proposed, it becomes a budgetary item for our fiscal courts. So we have to be very careful when we do this, and we all need to sit down and work this out. And Representative Tipton, Branscombe, and Decker are willing to do that in this cleanup legislation. But I believe we do need some guidance, probably across the state. It's too vague.
Can I chime in real
Yeah,
fast?
I would,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I'd say, yeah, I agree. It does need to be uniform, simply for a fairness issue, especially when you're dealing with people running in cross county lines as representatives or senators or whomever. But I'm glad to know that there is going to be hopefully a resolution to this. And hopefully it will not be an issue in this primary or election coming up. So I would hope the association would try to reach some kind of understanding with its members on how to proceed, although the law is somewhat vague. I know the original intent of the 12-day absentee was our normal business hours of each county clerk that they adhered to during the year. But that in itself can still create an imbalance from one county to another, the number of hours that the polls are open. So I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary, go ahead.
I just want to say I agree with you, Member Lewis. We actually had a situation in our special elections here where initially a clerk took the position that they didn't have to be open on Saturday for early voting because they didn't normally open on Saturday. So there does need to be some clarity in this law, and I'm confident that in a housekeeping bill with some other items as well will address that. And then to your other point, Member Lewis, I agree 100%. If a county does not have internet access, they should not do a vote center. We don't want a situation where people can double vote. I don't think that any of these 9 counties has that problem, fortunately, but I do agree with you completely that if they're not able to do this in a secure fashion, then they should use the old precinct model instead.
All right, very good. Anybody else have any comments on this? It sounds like we're moving toward the cleanup legislation in this session, which ought to hopefully clean it up in time for the primary. Anybody else have any questions? All right, I guess, Karen, we need to approve these plans, and I'm more than happy to entertain a motion to do so.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Member Lane. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Brangers. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right, very good. We will move on. The next item on our agenda is the administrative regulations. And Taylor, that we're going to throw that one to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got 2 items on the agenda there, A and B, that I'm going to ask for motions for each separately. The first is, it says regulations, plural, it's just one. It's the loan holdover that we haven't addressed from House Bill 574. The legislation there wants to see a risk limiting audit pilot program. And this is would be the admin reg to launch that. We've had discussions with, there's an expert out there that kind of pioneered Colorado, New Jersey, Nevada, several other states. I've been in conversations with her, and this is kind of tracking her recommendations that we do a working group that meets at least monthly with various stakeholders. The way I've got it drafted there, I think we've got state board, the secretary's office, the clerks would be involved, an election expert, and then it's open to anybody else that the group might feel that would need to get involved, auditor's office, whoever the group might feel would need to come on board. It's broad just because this is just the working group that the 574 bill envisioned. I think the working group would, the pilot program would need to come first. So that's what this is. Just a loose framework to form a working group for the pilot program.
Anybody have any questions?
In that case, I would ask a motion to continue to push this through LRC.
You need to vote on that, Taylor?
I would appreciate one. Chairman.
All right. All right.
Motion.
Was that you, Sherry?
Yes,
That was a motion to move this forward through the LRC.
correct.
All right. Do we have a second?
So moved.
A second by member Lewis. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Very good. Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. Item B would be the remainder of our other regulations. So one of the differences between administrative regulations and statutes are that statutes can be perpetual, while at least in Kentucky, administrative regulations do expire. So we've got various regulations in various states of expiration, and I included some in the packet today. They all have, well, not all of them, but there's nominal changes that need to be made to some of them following 574 and other legislation. I'll just point a couple of them out really quick. 314070. So with 574, 117.305 paren 2 became paren 5. So just to clean that up, change paren 2 to paren 5, paren 3 to paren 7, etc. 314130. This still refers to the Secretary of State when we've had legislation that would make that the State Board of Elections at this point. So we would just swap those terms out in that one. The final one I'd point out would just be 314180. That's the electioneering one. It still references 300 feet in one instance where that would need to be 100 feet. So just all minor little cleanup and renewals of the regs that we have otherwise on the books. So I'd like to ask for a motion to make these nominal changes and update what regs we have already promulgated with LRC.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I have a question.
Let's all right,
Motion
go ahead.
first.
Go ahead.
So-
You can.
So do we, if we're going to modify a regulation, don't we need the same kind of process we had for the one that we just did, where we have either a new regulation to approve or we have something that's redlined?
I can, are you asking for the italicized bold? I can do that. If the board would like that, yeah, I can bring back the actual strike through and showing number 2 changes to number 5. My understanding was that if there are nominal changes that we could move ahead without that, but if the board would like that, I have no problem producing that.
Is that what you're interested in seeing, Mr. Secretary?
Well, yeah, but I just figured that we weren't, as a board, allowed to just, I think we'd have to have something specific that we're voting to do in the regulatory process to, I just think that I'll defer to Taylor, he's the lawyer, but I think as a matter of form and process under the Administrative Procedures Act, I think we'd have to do something more formal than kind of just a writ large approval.
Taylor?
And I will always defer to the side of caution. If I know the secretary would not be voting on this, but if anyone, you know, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable doing this. So let's do that. I'll come back in January with the strike throughs and substitutions, so we see exactly what we're voting on. There's no problem doing that.
Is that Is that what you mean, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
just from my perspective, if there's no reason that we have to vote on it this month, I think I agree with the secretary. I would rather us see the exact language so that it can't be called into question later that we took a vote, but we didn't know what we were voting on.
Yeah, that is definitely erring on the side of caution, and I think that's probably the best idea, Taylor. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Skolnick. Mr. Secretary, thank you. Let's defer to January then, and you can just bring us back the exact language.
Will do. Thank you.
Chairman
All right.
Chandler? Chairman Chandler?
Yes,
Got one question
Jason.
here. Would, and I don't know about the KRS, but if we didn't get the language in KRS or a cleanup bill for the hours, could that be done in an administrative reg?
Taylor, do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know why it couldn't be, really.
That might be the best way to do that. And then we see fit, if it doesn't work in the primary and we need to change those hours around next time, an administrative reg could be easily changed from election to election if we saw fit, because there will be some elections that will have no turnout and we know that's going to take place. And is it cost prohibitive in a small primary that we know statewide it's going to be? Sometimes even a governor's primary is lowest of any primaries, but then you see a presidential which might need 12 hours each day. So I would think if we could, that would be a very good thing to do an administrative reg on if it's feasible.
That's actually an excellent point. Does anybody have any reason or idea about why we could not do that? Is there a prohibition?
Well, I think it depends on how much latitude we're given in the law. I don't mean just 574, but in the totality of the KRS to do things like establishing voting hours. I don't know that we have any automatic power to do that. I don't think we're prohibited from doing it, but I'm not sure that we're empowered to do that either.
Well, maybe we need to do a little research on that very quickly. I don't think anybody's got the answer right at this moment.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to us doing that if we have the authority or there's no prohibition. The only observation I'll make is if it's done through statute, it's tougher for someone to challenge it later. If we do it through a regulation, someone could feasibly challenge the regulation and say our interpretation isn't consistent with the statute. I don't think that that's necessarily a reason not to do it if we feel comfortable, but that would be the only reason I could think of outside of authority where a statute might be preferable to a regulation.
And if you're careful with your regulation, you ought to be able to lock down any challenge anyway, if you do it properly. But yeah. Taylor, if this is all right with everybody, Taylor, why don't you do a little research on that and report back with other information. When you report back on the regs, when you've got the language for the regs, if you could give us some idea about what the law allows, what latitude we've got on the hourly issue. That would be great. Okay, that's a good idea, Jason. Good thought. Thank you for that.
If it's okay, I may reach out to the 3 representatives that are drafting 574. They could see that it's good to put that language in there, allowing the State Board of Election to draft regulation to do these hours. That way we wouldn't have to go back to the legislature each time if we saw fit to change it.
That would certainly clarify it.
Okay, thank you.
That would make Taylor's research awfully easy. All right. Very good. Thank you. We will move on. And the next item we've got, Mr. Secretary, it's you. You're up.
Well, great. Well, good morning again, everybody. I just have a couple of things. First, we've had, as of close of business yesterday, 462 candidate filings in our office for 2022. I don't have this at my fingertips, but I feel like that's got to be a record at this point. It's been a steady stream of traffic in the Capitol, folks filing to run for office. That to me is really heartening. not just that people want to vote, but they want to serve as well. So that's really heartening. Yesterday afternoon, I received a writ from Governor Beshear. As you all know, Representative Reginald Meeks of Louisville resigned effective on Friday. So yesterday, the governor sent over a writ of election. A special election for that seat is going to be held on February 22nd. That, of course, includes the early voting before that, the 17th through the 19th. So we'll be having a special election again in Jefferson County in February. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate that. Next item, Karen, you're up.
Sorry, forgot to unmute. Well, first I want to just add a thank you to Mr. Secretary's comments about the county plans. They have worked very hard on these, and we're still continuing to review plans. We weren't able to get as many on today as we would like, because when we review, we maybe request some additional information from the county. So I feel like Taylor, Richard, and I are trying to go through them pretty closely, but your comments today, Mr. Secretary, they were very good, and the counties are working hard, working with their county boards, and I believe they know their counties and have good expectations for the 2022 election. So I just wanted to make that comment. And I was also going to mention, because I was certain that Secretary Adams would, that we did get the writ yesterday afternoon about the special election to replace Representative Meeks, who resigned over the weekend. We've already been in discussions with Jefferson County, just, trying to pull things together. They are working on their voting plan. We will be getting a timetable out on, deadlines that need to be met prior to the election on February 22nd in their community. So that, again, was an unexpected special election, but looking back, we are certainly glad we did those emergency admin regs that the board approved. We would again be trying to do something quickly that we did not have the law to back us up. So I wanted to bring up, I wanted to say that Secretary Adams and Deputy Secretary Jenny Scutchfield, we met and discussed scenarios that Secretary Adams had mentioned at the last board meeting. They provided me with those scenarios. I asked Rachel Pointer, our fiscal officer, to review and analyze those. We met back with Secretary Adams and Jenny, and we appreciated the meeting. While we did have that discussion and we did, follow the board's desire for us to prepare and look at other scenarios, with the KCCA's recommendation, knowing we need to get this process on the move, the counties are anxious to get their monies. My recommendation is to ask the board for approval on the per precinct model.
So Karen, just to clarify for anybody who might be listening in, you're talking about the HAVA dollars, Help America Vote Act dollars, federal money that would go to counties in this state for voting equipment.
Yes, sir. And
the question is how that money would be allocated. What system would be used to allocate that money? And at the last meeting, for people who may not remember, we had a discussion about this, and Secretary Adams suggested that maybe we might look at an alternative method rather than the per precinct method. And since that time, I think the County Clerks Association has determined that they would like to carry on with the per precinct method. So I guess this is the appropriate time to discuss that. And Jason, I'm glad you're here with us.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Secretary, Jason, you all want to comment, either one of you?
Sure. Let me,
Go ahead.
can I ask members of the board, did you all get an Excel spreadsheet that shows the difference for each county of how much they get if it's per voter and how much they get if it's per precinct? Has anyone seen that document?
No, that I did not. That's probably on me. I did not get that to the board after we reviewed it last Thursday. And I believe you shared it with shared it on an email with Chairman.
And I think one of the issues that we've got here is a timing issue. The counties are very anxious to get this moving, and it's I think a little bit problematic. At least this would be my opinion at this late stage in the game to try to overturn this in how we've usually done it. I certainly would. I think be amenable. I think everybody probably. I know the clerks would be amenable to looking at a different system down the line. We're just kind of crunched for time right now, Mr. Secretary. I don't know if we've got time to be able to go through all those scenarios.
No, I told Karen I in no way want to delay this process, and I fully support what you all do. I just want you to be aware that there are significant disparities in funding if we use a per precinct model versus per voter. I'm happy to send you that document, but basically, here's the problem. The precincts are really kind of an arbitrary concept in the sense that there's no a specific number of voters to be in a precinct. And so the counties that have been responsible and not created an excessive number of precincts get punished. They get victimized because they're not getting money based on how many voters they have in their county. And the counties that have an arbitrarily large number of precincts, some with hardly any voters in them, get more money. They get rewarded for having created too many precincts. And the disparities are pretty significant. So I'm not going to ask that you all delay this and not distribute these funds. I understand there's a need for speed on this, but I would respectfully request that in the future, we spot these issues further in advance and address them at a policy level rather than just through kind of inertia.
Sounds to me like we're all on the same page. It sounds to me like everybody's ready to look at that method and discuss it. We just need a little bit more time to do so.
Understood.
Is that all right with you, Jason?
Yes, that's what we want. We want to sit down at the table and look at ideas for the future. Yes.
All right. Well, very good. Resolve that without any difficulty. And Mr. Secretary, thank you for your work on that. I think everybody around agrees with the notion that we ought to try to do it as fairly as possible. So it's I don't think there's any dispute about that. With that, Karen, I think you've got your marching orders there. Anything else you want to add?
I think we probably should have a vote if these are HAVA dollars. We are closing a grant. It's approximately 6.7, 6.8 million. And since we'll be closing that security grant, I would appreciate a vote from the board.
What's the vote for?
The vote would be for the SBE staff to continue the per precinct model, prepare the memorandums of agreement that go to all the counties that meet the criteria, and bring those back to the board for approval. And after their county clerks and their county fiscal courts have signed off on the memorandum of agreement, we will bring it back to you, the board, for approval, for final approval.
All
And
right.
hopefully the checks can be distributed if we get through this process pretty quickly. It may not be the 1st of February, but we hope during the month of February, we'll be able to get these checks to the.
All right. Do we have a motion to move forward on the per precinct model?
So
Yes, I'll make that motion.
All right. Motion by member. I think James beat you there, Lynn.
Okay,
I'm going to give James the motion and you the second.
that's fine.
All right. Thank you all very much. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. Karen, do you have anything else?
I do not today.
Any other business? Does anybody have any other business to transact? If not, I would accept a motion to go into executive session to talk about a security matter.
So moved.
A motion by member Brangers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by, I think, member Lewis. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. We will now move into executive session and we will be back afterwards to confirm our January date for the next meeting. Very good. Thank you. And thank all of you who are going to have to get off.